Premarket Prep session. I'm your host, Adam Holland, stock options expert market strategist. And right now, the pounding vitamin C. That's really what I've been up to the past few days. As I'm sitting here under the weather, kind of snuck up on me end of last week, and then to get back, still working my way back up, but definitely feeling better than I was yesterday for sure. Got some sleep in, got a good amount of sleep in yesterday over the course of the day. So that was great. Got to take some time to recover, some time to get back to your baseline, right, to really settle in. And that's what I'm looking to get done here, kind of getting things back rolling, right, getting into the week this week. Market wasn't too crazy yesterday. Not a whole lot of movement going on. That's really big. We opened, we closed literally, I think, right at open for yesterday. So it was a very, I'd say not big movement day. But still important to kind of go over what we have going on for the rest of the week here. So I'm going to go in and get rocking and rolling. Good morning, everyone. As I said, previously, welcome to the pre-market prep session. We're here every day trying to get 1% better, making sure that we're aware of what's going on in the environment so that we can make the correct decisions when it comes down to where to put our money to make sure that it's as hard working as we are. So one thing that I wanted to go over here was the week ahead. Since we didn't get to do that yesterday, and then go over our important news for today. So the August Consumer Price Index report could put some meat back on the bone for inflation hawks looking for a vigilant Federal Reserve. While the Fed is largely considered to be nearing the end of its hiking cycle, the terminal rate is still up for debate. The economic calendar next week, meaning this week, will also feature updates on retail sales, producer prices, and jobless claims. Federal Reserve speakers are in a blackout period ahead of the FOMC meeting scheduled for September 19th to 20th, which could give the economic reports extra weight. Let's see here. On Seeking Alpha analyst Victor Durganov thinks the Fed should support markets and may move to an easier monetary stance as the calendar moves into the new year. However, he noted that the economic image may need to worsen before the Federal Reserve shows more apparent signs that the pivot is near. In terms of earnings, we've got a few household names here this week. We've got Oracle yesterday, and then we have Adobe on Thursday. So, both of those. Adobe could be interesting because of the whole AI aspect. For you guys that aren't aware, Adobe's Firefly generative AI, like editing software, is really awesome. And a lot of people are super in on that. So Adobe might be something that's interesting heading into earnings. But again, if you wouldn't flush it down the toilet, don't play it on earnings. That's exactly where we're still at, right, with things like Adobe. But I do think in terms of things that could see some moves based off of earnings, I think Adobe is one of them. And that depends. I'd have to look over their past, their past earnings reports and kind of see if that hype has already been priced in for them. It might have been. But Adobe is definitely one to pay attention to because, again, they immediately kind of integrated that into their suite of software options and are charging for it. So that's something where, kind of the big thing with AI is how are we going to monetize it? And that was something that they did, pretty easily, pretty quickly, and pretty seamlessly. Now let's see what we got going on here. In terms of the week ahead, that's pretty much the most important thing when we go to our market watch, economic calendar and politics calendar. On, let's see, Wednesday, nothing really important today, but on Wednesday we get consumer price index. So that is going to be the big news of the week. CPI data, inflation data, right? One of the big factors that's shaping how markets are moving. And then on Thursday, we get initial jobless claims as well as PPI data. So CPI and PPI data are going to be really the most important. And we do get consumer sentiment, right? Preliminary numbers at 10 a.m. on Friday. But the big things right now this week are going to come Wednesday pre-market and Thursday pre-market. That's consumer price index, CPI, and then PPI, which is producer price index, as well as initial jobless claims. So all that will kind of give context toward what the Fed will ultimately do, right, when it comes down to their decision here for interest rates and things like that. Yes, Vivian, good morning. Paul, good morning. Alicia, good morning. Tage, good morning. Yes, Paul, I appreciate that. And thank you guys, too, for all the messages. I appreciate it. I was, in and out. I'm feeling slightly better, but it was really just I didn't get any sleep the night beforehand. Like I was just struggling, had like the night sweats and tossing and turning. So yesterday I was just able to catch up on sleep and just hitting like the Gatorade, right, to stay hydrated, vitamin D, vitamin C, the wellness pills, wellness formula, all that. So we're still, going trucking along, but definitely at least feeling alive this morning, right? Whereas yesterday that was not the case. Yesterday I was like, nope, nope, nope. So we're working back. Still not 100%, but we're getting there. And maybe I can start incorporating some physical activity as we get back to the end of the week because that's a big thing for me in my morning routine is being able to get out and do stuff and that's something I haven't been able to do as of recent. But yes, I appreciate that, Paul, and I appreciate all the messages. Yesterday again is nothing but love. I didn't get back to everybody or really reach out. I was just trying to, kind of salvage the day and just rest up. Also got some unfortunate news about a friend from high school passing away in a car accident. So it was just a tough day, right? Tough day yesterday. Can we get okay? I went out for a second, but yeah, just a tough day yesterday. Bad news. Kind of struggling on the health front, but today is a new day. I'm extra grateful, for the people that I have still here. And you guys know how that goes whenever you get bad news, unexpected news about a good person passing away. It's never good. In fact, one might venture to say it sucks. So yesterday, not the best day, but we've still got a ton of days ahead, right? Still have a ton to be grateful for. I'm grateful for, the guy that I knew and, just praying for his family and all that. But yeah, yesterday, one of those days where it was definitely some negative factors piling on top of each other. So I'm glad that I got to have that day to not really have to worry about anything because it was definitely one of the tougher days there. So you know, yeah, rest in peace to my friend Noah. I know he'll be watching. Watching down on me. He was a great guy, and I was very privileged to know him. But yeah, that made yesterday a little bit tougher. You guys might have seen my mom's post on Facebook, but one of Jonathan's teammates, one of my friends, we both dredged through AP Physics together. So yeah, great dude, very great dude. He'll be sorely missed. Let's see here. Getting onto kind of our news for today, right? Our Tuesday specific news. Our top news is going to be Game of Monopoly. So the biggest antitrust trial of the modern digital era lands in court today as the U.S. Department of Justice faces Google in a lengthy showdown over its dominance in online search. The suit is a holdover from the Trump administration, which took an activist regulatory approach against big tech that has continued under President Biden. The coming trial is expected to last 2 months before any appeals, but Alphabet also faces litigation over competitive practices in Europe, as well as a separate challenge in the U.S. over its advising technology business. Now, in terms of the plaintiff, the DOJ will argue that Google did not cement its monopoly through innovations, but rather via exclusive contracts and deals that made it the default search engine on phones and internet browsers. Those bad acts and illegal means made it extremely difficult or impossible for any rivals to thrive and cut off the routes its competitors could take to get in front of consumers. Exclusionary provisions are even said to be behind Google owning 90% of the search traffic on the web, with its contracts helping it achieve that dominant position. So, I mean, this isn't really anything to be scared about, to be completely honest, just because big tech is embroiled in lawsuits all the time. I've talked about it, right? I've mentioned it. You guys have heard me mention that. It's part of being a huge company with huge market share, is that you just get sued all the time. You get investigated for antitrust issues all the time. And did Google likely do stuff to discourage competition? Yeah. Did they have all of these contracts to have Google preloaded onto these devices instead of like a Bing or something else? Yeah. So it's just, but they also have a ton of money, and whatever fine they get slapped with won't be very large because they have a lot of cash on hand, and they'll continue to do what they do because that's just how big tech rolls. So in terms of the plaintiff, that's kind of what the plaintiff is arguing against Google, and then in terms of the defendant, meaning Google. Google lawyers will maintain that contracts struck with the likes of Apple, Samsung, Firefox, and Verizon are not exclusive and haven't prevented people from searching out other search engines. They'll also argue that its product provides a better experience while zooming in on specific definitions and taking a broader outlook on web traffic. For example, there are many places where searches are conducted, like on the platforms of Amazon and Meta, with those companies also paying close attention to the courtroom battle. Now, what to watch? The trial will determine whether the U.S. government can bring a successful monopoly case against big tech after previous failures with IBM and Microsoft. However, even if the government wins this time around, a breakup or divestitures are not expected, but rather remedies that can include absolving Google's exclusive search deals. Any decision will also have an impact on the future of innovation, including how much data can be collected in the coming age of artificial intelligence and other new technologies. Google wasn't really in the headlines for this, but Google also unveiled like their new AI, which apparently, in a head-to-head test against ChatGPT was like 5 times better. So we'll see if that really ends up digging into ChatGPT's market share or not. But I don't know if Google's what it was called, if it was called Gemini but it was some new AI that they had just come out with. And let me see here. Pretty sure I sent it to myself. Yeah, Google's Gemini AI outperforming GPT-4 by 5 times, sparking conversations on AI governance. So that's the big thing, right? Is that right now we're struggling to even keep up when it comes like being, regulatory bodies applying pressure on AI, just because this arms race is in kind of full heat, and the regulation isn't coming fast enough. Like the fact that Google can go and work on an AI and it'd be 5 times more powerful than GPT-4 in only a few months means that they are not giving like a single crap about like the ramifications of just working on AI and trying to get it that strong that fast. And that's scary. And, that is something that, again, like threatens us existentially, like as a species. So I don't know, right? Again, it's one of those things where you just keep the fingers crossed, but that was a big headline. I'm surprised it didn't make it into here, but that I thought was, very important is just like the fact that we can cross these remarkable thresholds so quickly with AI are pretty scary. So, yeah, we'll see how that situation develops. In terms of mergers and acquisitions, packaging giant WestRock, ticker WRK, one of the largest container board producers in Europe's Smurfit Kappa, have signed a definitive agreement to create a $20 billion packaging giant. News of the deal overnight saw WestRock climb 8% before the bell, while Smurfit's London listed shares declined 9%. Despite the companies touting the benefits of the deal, Jeffries had warned of limited synergies to having a global footprint in the paper packaging industry, in West Monroe's Randall Kenworthy called the tie-up a distraction. However, Seeking Alpha analyst Mayer Evidence Lab views the deal as positive, given that WestRock's fundamentals are under pressure. So in terms of financial news, capital rules, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon has once again slammed U.S. regulators' proposal for higher capital requirements for banks, calling it hugely disappointing as it could force borrowers to pay more for loans and may curtail lending by banks. The higher capital rule is part of the Basel III endgame reforms proposed by regulators in July. Dimon is not the only one on Wall Street unhappy with the proposal, as other bank CEOs have also echoed his views, as well as some Federal Reserve governors. Take a look at how banks would be impacted by the new regulation. Yeah, it's something that has to happen in the wake of, these bank issues that we've been having over the course of the past year, but it's not something that anybody wants, especially these banks. Banks make money by being able to take money and immediately lend it out. When they're required to have more money on hand, it means they can't lend as much of that money out, so they can't generate as much revenue. So it's obviously not something that banks like, but at least for these smaller banks, it's super necessary. For the larger banks like JP Morgan Chase, maybe not as much because they're not as frivolous or as stupid, frankly, with the money. But these smaller regional banks, yeah, they need that. So even if it does require, borrowers to pay more for loans and it's worth it because you don't have to worry about people coming to the bank and the bank saying, "Hey, actually, we have no money for you." So I think they should be required to keep more money there on tap. In terms of energy news, Turning Point, the International Energy Agency, has forecast that demand for coal, natural gas, and oil will likely peak before 2030 because of the ongoing shift to renewable power and wider electric vehicle adoption. Quote, we are witnessing the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era, and we have to prepare ourselves for the next era, declared Fatih Birol, IEA Executive Director. Now, reasons for the new developments include renewables increasingly outmatching gas for producing electricity, the rise of heat pumps, and Europe's accelerated shift away from gas following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. B-Roll also noted China's moves to encourage clean energy use, but called on governments to implement stronger and faster policies. I mean, we're going to have this ongoing thing about energy and being green and not being green. But at the end of the day, again, when economies are struggling and there's war going on, the last thing people are worried about is going green. So I feel like that will, I mean, it's nice for them to say that, our demand for coal, natural gas, and oil will peak before 2030. But at the end of the day, like, does that even matter? Is it really relevant? I don't really think so. In terms of today's markets, mixed bag across the board. We got green and red everywhere. It's looking like Christmas. In Asia, Japan, we're up 1%. Hong Kong, we're down 0.4. China, we're down 0.2. India, we're up 0.1. The footy in London, up 0.6%. Paris, down 0.1. Frankfurt, down 0.3. The Dow, down 0.2. S&P, down 0.2. NASDAQ, down 0.2. Crude oil, up 0.8%. Gold, down 0.5. Bitcoin, up 1.8% to 26K. No real important things on the economic calendar today, so we'll finish up here with our rapid-fire bullet point rundown. What else is happening? Based off survey results, might not be the best time to invest in IPOs. I don't think it's ever the best time to invest in IPO. Disney and then Charter Inc. carriage deal to end blackout. Qualcomm pops as Apple extends chip supply deal. So that's QCOM, QCOM. Cannabis stocks keep rallying amid positive news on regulatory front. Experts fear auto workers' strike could be worse than 2019 walkout, which is not good at all, right? We talked about the auto workers' strike last week and how that could affect tickers like GM and Ford and all that, based off the fact that they need to keep the production lines rolling in order to maintain profitability. And I see GM, was down yesterday off the back of that news. Ford probably was as well. Yeah, Ford was as well. So it's one of those things where they got to get this this walkout, this worker strike under control. Otherwise, this will really start affecting their bottom line, like millions per day. RTX declines on profit warning from jet engine checks. That's for Raytheon, ticker RTX. Lithium America's volcano project may be biggest deposit ever found, which is important. If you guys remember a few challenges ago, when I talked about lithium and how it's, like the new gold. Lithium is one of the most valuable natural resources that we have at this point because lithium, is necessary for batteries, and batteries quite literally power everything. So they found a huge deposit in a U.S. volcano, and that's LAC, by the way, is Lithium America's ticker. So LAC is the ticker there, but you want to be involved with lithium in some way long term, whether it's an ETF or a specific stock. In terms of Tesla leads S&P 500 index as AI premium plays in. Tesla had a big day yesterday. Oracle, ORCL misses Q1 sales. Cloud revenue slows sequentially. FDA greenlights Moderna. Pfizer updated COVID shots. Then G20 summit yields pledge to support tripling of renewables. Little else. So Tesla is something that is, worth taking a look at here after them having that big day yesterday, just because, let me double check here to see. They're not there yet, but Tesla is back to kind of approaching weekly downtrend resistance. So let me see. Based off of this chart, it looks like it's around 285. So it's still like $12 away. But it's significant, right, to point that out because Tesla's one of those things you can go on those crazy runs, but you got to make sure that, you're aware of the fact that there's long-standing resistance at certain areas. So, right, it looks like I can't quite pinpoint where it is, but somewhere around that 285 area. As we get closer, I'll be able to see even better. But that, looks like a nice spot to short Tesla as long as Tesla doesn't break that weekly downtrend. It's the same one that we topped out last time. If you guys remember last time we played Tesla on the weekly, it paid very nicely. We topped out at that same weekly resistance, right? It was the same weekly downtrend resistance that I have here on the line that we're about to, face now. So with Tesla, just make sure you're aware with that, right? You got that factored in. And let's see here. Last headline: G20 summit yields pledge to support tripling of renewables. Little else. Yeah, G20. I mean, we know that's kind of just for kind of publicity, right? We talked about that, the G20 meeting with all the different world leaders. It's kind of just everybody gets together and talks, and we see where things stand, I guess, in terms of like those interpersonal relationships, even though things are already kind of bad, right? We talked about the going into it with BRICS and, China, Russia, and all that. So going into G20, it's definitely tense. So I'm sure Biden had his work cut out for him, but that's not really any type of event where you look to see any, kind of real actionable changes happen where it's like, oh, this will affect markets, immediately on Monday or on Tuesday. But that's it, right? That'll wrap us up and take us out for the pre-market prep session today, which I am happy of because the talking and plus congestion has been a tough combo. But you guys know the drill, right? Going to hop into the charts. We'll go over kind of any opportunity that looks good here for this week. Remain patient, right? We got the CPI data tomorrow, so make sure you factor that in to any decisions that you make on the swing front, right? Know that we have inflation data coming in that can cause the markets to move. And factor that in, right? As long as you have the correct expectations, you can make moves with high probabilities, right? And continue to execute in a positive way from there. So excited to be back. Rich Dub, yes, sir. Yeah, feeling better. Going to keep trying to, feel better and work our way through this, and happy to be here. Let's make it another great week. Everybody have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Have a good one.